All right, we're live, everybody. Welcome. We have a slightly different setup for those of you who can see. For everybody listening on the podcast, thank you for joining us. We have Jessup with us tonight.
Hello.
Special guest. We don't do special guests very often, and this is a very special guest. She was last on in February. Felicity, I think you were in Paris or something.
I was in February. Oh, I don't know where I was in February.
You were out of town.
I was out of town.
It was raining. It was a dark and stormy night. But anyway, let me flip this over so we're looking at live feed. But welcome, Lee.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're excited to be jumping in. We're going to be talking about the state of the industry, streamers, maybe jump in a little bit in terms of WGA, ATA, even though I don't think there's that much of an update, but there's some stuff.
Well, there is an update.
Yeah, right.
There's always an update.
Lee has the update, everyone.
Yeah, well, Max Tim, Director of Education.
Felicity Wren, Director of Development.
And we're with ISA, International Screenwriters Association. All right, so what do we got to announce real quick?
I'm just saying that was Happy by Pharrell Williams. It's from the Despicable Me 2. We do not own the rights to that, but oh my goodness, it makes you feel good. We have do you want to start with this? We have a few announcements we'd like to. We'll
make them while I pour.
Okay, we are still being sponsored by Steele Wines. We just haven't got their wines right now because
they're that good.
They're that good that we drank them all. They are actually sponsoring us for our third Thursday at Cannon, which is tomorrow, which Los Angeles is a wait list. So if you are in Los Angeles and you want to get on the wait list, do that. If you are elsewhere in the country or in the world, do check out our events page and sign up for Third Thursdays in your area. There might be one next to you. Just have a check it out.
Definitely go to the events page on networkisa.org.
Cheers! And that was an old vine, Zinfandel.
Ancient Vine. By Klein. Contra Costa County.
We chose that today because I was feeling like an ancient vine as I was clawing my way off the shelf. So a few little announcements. Table Read My Screenplay Park City has launched. So that's our event that happens during the Sundance Film Festival up in Park City. The grand prize winner will attend the 2020 Sundance and Sundance Film Festivals and receive $1,500 in cash.
Hey.
Oh, a trip to Park City and a table read of your winning script. Plus, you'll be invited to the ISA development slates. That means you get to in front of Max and I.
You know, and we're moving through the announcements pretty quickly because we always end up going along with Lee because there's just so much. She's a wealth of data.
You're being so nice. I just can't shut up.
Yeah, right. True. Okay, fine. We'll cut you off for an hour. No, we got a lot to cover, but it is important to make these announcements. I know some people are like, oh, let's just get to it. But you should be going to networkisa.org. We have some really amazing changes to the website coming. It's going to be a lot easier to be choosing things. We're offering a huge discount on my online course, full development, 12-week course with audio and written lectures, and I'm adding video literally as of this week. So it's going to be
He did record one today, huge. And he was right near the end of it. 9 minutes and 52 seconds for his 10-minute video, and I was like, on the phone. It was like
in the next room, and I kept plowing through, and then of course I listened to it, and that's like yeah.
However, he did say that the second take was better.
Take was better. Point being, it's usually $99, which in and of itself is inexpensive, but it's only $69 for a 12-week course.
$69?
$69, 30% off. It's worth it. You can go to thecraftcourse.com. We're going to share the link here in a little bit, so that and you need to use that link to get the discount. Everybody listening on the podcast,
as opposed to a big second.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll share that link in a second. I know Samantha doesn't have that link, but anyway. As a segue to get into Lee, to talk about education.
Yes. Because
that is part of it's a big part of what you do, but it's in a very specific way. So, general question to open it up, how important is education for screenwriting?
Oh, so important. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it from a career perspective. First of all, there is no career without craft, right? Yeah. Without really knowing your craft and mastering it so that you can tell the stories that you want to tell in the most masterful way. So craft first and foremost is something that you have to know because you're coming into the industry that deals in story 24/7, right? So you have to know your take on story, how to develop that, how to present it, what works, what doesn't work, what you respond to, what you don't respond to, whether it's reading books, taking classes, reading scripts. Right. You got to do all those things. You got to analyze work to really understand how screenwriting and television writing works. It's kind of a deceptively complex art form because when it's working it seems so simple on the page, but it's really
that is the art, I guess.
Yeah, it's so complex and it's so complicated. And then there's the knowledge of getting to know the industry, getting to know what it does. So if you want to work in the industry today, you've got to know what the industry is making today. I talked to somebody recently who was like, well, I don't really like anything the industry's making. Well, guess what? The industry's doing quite well making what it's making. You have to know where your stuff fits in it, rather than I'm going to go and reinvent the wheel.
And it doesn't mean you have to like the stuff either.
No.
You just have to understand how it works.
But you have to like something that it's making. If I'm going to a restaurant and I hate all their food, why am I going to go cook there? Right? If I hate their taste buds. And it's the good news about the industry is that it's making a lot of content right now, right?
A ton.
More than we ever have been producing. So there has to be something that you can find that you love.
There's a reason you wanted to write in the first place, so you have to be focusing on that.
There is usually some inspiration that brought you to it. And I'm not saying you have to love everything or watch every Marvel movie. I'm not a Marvel movie person, even though I have kids, so I watch all of them. It's my lot in life.
But you can understand what it's doing.
Yeah, but I understand what's working. I understand what's not working. I have my favorite Marvel movies. I have ones that just don't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I thought Black Panther was a stroke of genius. There are those great. I love Captain Marvel, for the record, as a good feminist. I was very happy with that. So you have to understand what the industry is doing. You have to watch everything in your genre, in your general space, in film, in television.
Try to read as much of it too.
Read scripts. Get a hold of the material. If you're in LA, go to the WGA library. If you're not in LA, make some friends. There are Dropboxes everywhere. There's a Google Drive that can be easily Googleable with TV scripts, with feature like today.
There you go.
Today you can get it anywhere, and you got to be educated. Nobody wants to be an educator when working with a writer.
So what do they Google to find that Google Drive?
Google, current TV pilots. I'm sure you will find a link.
Okay.
But just remember that what it boils down to is trying to get you to a place where you are a desirable writer to the industry. And a desirable writer is a knowledgeable writer.
Agreed.
No executive wants to be an educator, right? No executive wants to sit down with a writer and say, okay, now you have to watch this and this and this and this and that, and then come back to me and possibly write a paper.
You have to be ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well.
And have you read Save the Cat?
Right. Honestly. Or my book. There's a plug.
But that's the thing, like, read it, love it, hate it, whatever. You don't have to love it, you don't have to abide by it, you just have to know it.
Yeah. You just have to know how to do it.
I think you have to know the rules in order to break them. Isn't that that's kind of a life lesson anyway?
Yeah, embrace the rules and then decimate them.
Yeah.
Let's say hi
do that.
to a few people. We've got Craig James, my sister Erin's on. Hi, Erin. Anthony McBride, Mary Davis, EJ Wyatt, Mary Davis again, Lee J. We've got a lot of our regulars coming back, so thanks everybody. Shayna.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
We missed you 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yes.
Were you guys not on 2 weeks ago? What happened?
We were on 2 weeks ago, and for some reason, people weren't tuning in.
Well, none of our regulars. I mean,
we missed our regulars.
It was like, hello.
Well, welcome back, regulars.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have some new people because Lee is here too.
We can't forget to actually drink the wine.
Yeah,
let's drink the wine.
Cheers.
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 Cheers,
Let's
everybody.
see if
Happy
it's as
Wednesday.
good as the app said. Smells like wine.
Nice bouquet on that wine.
All right. That's not yummy Zinfandel. For all of the people listening to the podcast, we apologize for the dead air when we drink.
Oh, it's nice. You can hear some lip smacking instead.
Yes,
How tasty.
lip smackingly good. All right, so what are we going to talk about? Well, you know what? I think a good idea, just for everybody who is watching or listening, you don't know who you are.
Okay.
Just really briefly, what do you do specifically?
I am a career coach for emerging and professional screenwriters. A manager friend by the name of Mark Manis over at Zero Gravity once defined me as a career guidance counselor, which I think is great.
As the alarm goes off for all the writers that
That's
who
your writer's
need
help.
alarm going off.
Hopefully it's not my car, but it stopped, so it wasn't my car. So I work with writers, from writers who are just starting out to writers who are running shows, A-list writers, studios, et cetera, on the management, construction, elevation of their career, be it in film, television, both, film and novels, whatever their particular path brings them to.
Okay, all right. So there you go. That's our show.
Bye.
Well, let's get into a nice, easy way to get into it. And I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering, let's see. So, Anthony McBride is thanking you for the manager's list.
Oh, thanks for grabbing it.
All right, so status of and state of the industry right now. I think it's very positive from what is happening. We'll make it a little bit more screenwriting centric. How is it looking from the screenwriting?
What do you usually do? I mean, it is ISA, so I would imagine it's always
There's a lot of business we
centric.
can talk, but how is this good for new writers coming in who haven't done anything?
Listen, the great thing that's happening in the industry today is not only the growth in television. I know a lot of people look at the growth in television, which is only continuing to grow and will continue to grow, right? Back in, a million years ago, like 2014, 15, John Landgraf, who is the head of FX, said that, we'll be done with our growth period in 2019
That's
because
right.
That was when Netflix
I remember you saying that.
will
Yeah.
peak. Well, guess what? Now we have Disney Plus and
Huge
Apple
competition.
Plus
Yeah.
and HBO Max and the list goes on. And NBC has just announced Peacock. Like, we have all of these things going on that only signal growth. Right, TV is a harder world to access for screenwriters than features because it is a working machine that can break more easily than anybody would like to think, specifically on a given show. But what we're seeing happen both in features and in TV that's really great right now is a real effort towards diverse storytelling.
Right.
Diverse voices, different
What
points
you've
of
been
view.
preaching for years.
And listen, it's long overdue, and I will say it is not happening in the clip that it needs to be happening but it is happening.
Right.
So suddenly we have Latinx showrunners, right? Suddenly we are seeing shows like Vida become really successful, and there's significantly more to that. We're seeing casts that are not all white in both film and television. We're seeing a movie like The Farewell. We're seeing The Big Sick, that's clearly older, but we're seeing, Be My Maybe, all of these kind of movies that are beyond the Crazy Rich Asians based on a book, and I'm not downplaying it at all. I think it's amazing. And I love the movie, and I've watched it like 17 times because, again, kids.
Yeah, right.
So there is a diversification of not only cast, but points of view and stories that are coming from those points of view. And I think there is a question that rises about the stories that we're telling and some repetition that we might see there from the same tried and true storytellers who are still great and have a lot to contribute. But there's a question, I think, with every story, what does that contribute to the landscape? Do we need another one of these? Because right now I get the sense and I get the feeling that there's a lot more stories that we feel we have to unearth.
Yeah.
And a lot more voices and a lot more points of view.
A lot of people who are unheard.
Yeah. It's about damn time.
We had a kind of microcosm of this happen actually inside the organisation, where it was a script that we really like. It's really from a female point of view. And there was some pushback from it that it's already been done, Wine Country being the example.
Yeah.
And that maybe there wouldn't, that if there's another couple of things that's happening, then maybe we shouldn't even consider it. And I got very cross about the fact, saying, so we're only allowed 5 movies that have the female perspective. It's told from the female gaze. And now we have to go back to how it was. I think that's the trouble. There is a little pushback. They're like, well, we've done Black Panther and we've done Crazy Rich Asians. I think now we should go back. But it's too late. The door has opened and we are bundling through, everybody.
Well, and the thing about it is that there's a real audience, right? At the end of the day, and this is where we get into kind of like the colder element of this, is it's a business.
Yeah.
So if the business finds that it can be successful opening it up and catering to more audiences, why wouldn't it?
Right.
Totally.
If we're finding that more African American moviegoers are participating and more Asian moviegoers are participating, and we have these audiences that didn't have a home, right? That didn't have those people to identify with, and we go as far as shows like Shrill, right? When we look at characters that are outside of the norm.
Yes.
Well, I've
show.
always looked at Telemundo like, look at the size of the audience of people watching this network. And there are so few Hispanic representations in movies and TV.
Yeah, and listen, I hear myself talking about Shrill, and it's really sad that we're in a place where the norm is, young woman at 28, gorgeous, right? That was the norm in TV for so long. That these were our protagonists again and again. I mean, as a woman, and while I am
gorgeous.
I'll say it. Can't blush on camera.
And 28.
And 28, clearly, with two children that I had at infancy. I find that it's really important to have representation. I'm an Israeli American. I've never felt within the norms of, the wholesome, beautiful American woman. That never felt to me like a mirror image.
Right.
I'm not anything other than what I am, and certainly have not experienced the bigotry that people that are outside of what I am have experienced, even though somebody pulled up to me the other day next to my car and yelled, "Go back to where you came from."
What?
Yeah, it's becoming a very interesting country.
What
Do they think you were Irish?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Seriously.
I don't think he thought that I was Israeli. I think he thought I was Middle Eastern, which is fine because I am Middle Eastern because Israel is in the Middle East.
Right.
Quick history lesson.
Yeah, right.
It's actually technically Asia, but
Right.
but
Wild.
because of that, I think it's important for audience members to see themselves on screen. And I think that we should celebrate our diversity, and that writers should write to that diversity.
Yeah.
I agree, but I've also felt, and that has been a personal mission of mine, that we can change the world with story. It's how people change their mind without being told off.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do that is by telling stories that challenge the norm, and in such a way that it isn't a lecture, but suddenly you're watching people and their lives and the relationships. I think.
Well, and for the longest time, so many people, pushed back by, they're just trying to be politically correct, and it's like, no, really has nothing to do with it. It's look at the audience of the people who are people in the audience who are looking for shows and movies they can connect with.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with being politically correct.
Absolutely. Now, listen, I think it's about the candor in sharing your own truth and your own experience, and that is really the only way that you can share who you are and hopefully change people's minds who need to be changed, because you're being honest about your human experience. Right? That's all we have at the end of the day, and I think that's what writers bring to the table, the essential human experience that they're willing to drill down into and pour onto the page, blood, guts, and all. That makes it such an amazing profession.
Right.
I agree.
For everyone on the Facebook Live broadcast, if you have any questions about the industry, business, literally anything,
Bring it on.
seriously, type away. There are no stupid questions, and there are hopefully good answers. I almost said no stupid answers.
We'll try really hard. We only just got started on the wine,
Yeah.
so
Depends, halfway down that glass. It's a big one.
My sister said we can change the world with story. I like that. There you go. Shout out to Felicity.
Thank you.
Yay.
I agree.
Yeah, so, we've got the cat coming up. We might have a black cat spotting in our broadcast. But, so, that is obviously incredibly important, and it's incredibly uplifting for writers of, the non-white background. I mean, it's basically most people on the planet.
And women. Remember that women are actually
True.
classed
Yes.
as diverse
Yeah.
in the
Which is silly,
movie and
but
TV
okay,
industry. Here we are.
It's
We're being diverse at
very
the
good
table.
news.
we're outnumbering the white man.
The
at table.
irony is of the story that you were telling us before about the gentleman who came in loving a script and saying, tell me that it was written by a woman, right? So the bad news is, for people like me,
Listen, it definitely, and specifically in television, it is a difficult time for white men. And don't get me wrong, I'm married to a white man. I'm in the white man fan club. So I get it, and I work with very talented white men. So I think that it's the reason that this is happening is that TV has acknowledged the need to diversify, right? But it's not going to diversify at the top. It's not going to bring in brand new, never done it before,
right? Yes,
Japanese showrunners.
Yeah.
No.
TV is going to diversify at the bottom levels,
Right.
and then build those writers up, because TV very much works within a corporate structure. You go in as staff writer
Yeah.
and work your way up
It's
until
really the only organized part of the entire industry.
yeah, but it's very corporate in its mentality.
Right.
But you work your way up and you earn your way into showrunner, right? Into executive producer, into co-executive producer, into showrunner, and so TV is diversifying and very focused on the optics, because it's also corporate run, with corporate ability to identify such needs. So I am finding that it is a tough moment for white men who've not previously worked in television to break into television, or who've not had success in film to then backdoor their way into TV. It doesn't mean that white men shouldn't write TV anymore and shouldn't apply to fellowships. I think now more than ever, because it's so hard for white men to get into those staffy positions without previous success. The fellowships become that much more important, even if you are competing for the one white person spot on NBC, right? Even if you're competing for one of the 8 on Warner
Which
Brothers.
is wild. It wasn't that long ago that there were diversity programs and initiatives that had people fighting for that one Latino spot
Yeah,
on the show.
no. It's definitely
flipped.
changed.
Yeah.
I mean, white men today get in through being an assistant on a show, and that is a very valid way in. And truly, the two paths, known and proven paths into television, in a world where everything's very difficult, are either going up the assistant route. So there are 4 assistant positions in any writer's room, generally, if we're not talking about a very small show, but generally you're going to have a writer's PA, a showrunner's assistant, a writer's assistant, and a coordinator.
Yeah.
Those positions hopefully then can parlay into a move up into staff writer, and those are wide open, right? Those are not as diversity specific as...
Because you're low level, you're learning the
Yeah,
ropes.
you're there to help. You're
Yeah.
there to lend a helping hand in your designated area and potentially extend beyond it.
Yeah.
So the two paths are still fellowships and coming from an assistant position, but there are those scenarios of writers who are able to write themselves into a staff writer position without going the other path. There are those opportunities, specifically when writers bring in a specific backstory that can fit in with a particular job. So today, when I work with white male writer, of which I have a lot, I always tell them, for those who haven't broken in, 1 pilot, 2 features.
Right.
The feature market is much friendlier to white men, and there's less concern about where is the great script coming
That's
from.
interesting. So why?
Because all the business is on the page, and there's a lot less concern with optics.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
it's great, and it's done.
Yeah, because there's a little bit more of a you have to answer to corporate a little bit more.
You have to answer to corporate. Also,
Through
with
TV, I mean, yeah.
if you are bringing it, first of all, as a new writer, your chances of selling a pilot or kind of coming in that path, very, very small.
And
TV
that's almost regardless of your background.
Yeah. TV
Yeah,
doesn't pick
yeah.
up from the outside.
Yeah.
It likes to work with people who've worked their way
Right.
through the system.
Yeah.
Traditionally, of course, there are always exceptions. With features, all the business is on the page. You are not going to be faulted for bringing less diversity into television. But it's really about the fact that all the business is on the page. I have a writer who was a male writer, wrote a female forward script that is now set up with a big director, big actor. It's about a female character. 2 female writers were brought in to work on that script with big names.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't think it's an accident. I
Right,
do think it's
right.
optics,
Yeah.
which I understand.
Yeah.
I think as the female producers on this movie felt that we
It's
can't
optics,
justify
but
it.
it's also because they probably have a different perspective.
It's optics and it's authenticity.
Yeah,
I don't,
right.
but I do think, when I imagine those producers sitting and thinking about, okay, we have this great script and we want to do rewrites. If I was that producer, I would say, okay, let's see what female writers we can bring in here,
Yeah.
not any writer.
Right.
And because we are developing more concern for alternate points of view to the white male point of view, there is a desire to bring those voices in, to celebrate those voices. And frankly, and here's the thing, I don't think those producers did anything wrong, because female writers need to be more welcomed into rooms,
Yeah.
right? They need to be more in the mix for assignments. They need all of those things because they deserve it, because they're damn good writers.
Right.
Hopefully all of this is going to a place where one day in the not too far away future, it really is about the best writer for a particular job that isn't white, black, Asian, female, trans, whatever. Just the best writer for a particular job, for a particular show, for a particular assignment that has the most relevant things to bring to it.
Right.
I think there has to be, it happened in the British acting profession, there had to be positive discrimination for a little while. And it's because it was populated by white middle class people. And they had to do positive discrimination, so actually they did cross-casting in a lot of theatrical productions, and then even on TV, because actually people of colour weren't going to drama school, either because they didn't have the funding or they didn't have the inspiration to.
Yeah.
It wasn't a place that was open for
Right.
them. And so then to suddenly see people that looks like them on the stage or
Right.
on the screen, then suddenly you consider it as a career.
Yeah.
And I think that, and it was for a little while, there was a big pushback in the UK about this isn't fair. But it did even itself out, and I would say now that there isn't positive discrimination in the same way. It's just the best person for the job.
Yeah, but I think here's the thing. It was so offset for so long.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to offset the other way a little bit, where
the pendulum.
Some writers may feel, as I'm sure some actors did, kind of pushed out or placed in the fringe or whatnot. And I understand those feelings. I think they're entirely relevant.
Yeah.
But it is a self-correcting mechanism, and we've not yet self-corrected.
Yeah,
No.
right. It'll bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you able to read the we got a whole bunch of questions.
Woo! What did I say? I'm sorry.
So
I
we just
apologize.
go from the top down. No, it's great. They're good. Do you see Anthony McBride?
I do. Does Lee's service help win contests, land fellowships, or get staffed? So 3 things.
It's a big
Win
question.
contests, land fellowships, or get staffed.
I will say this. The writers I've worked with have certainly won contests, get staffed, get in fellowships. I've been very lucky in that I've worked with amazing writers who chose to hire my services, who chose to bring me into their journeys, and because of that, every year I have writers who are winning contests and fellowships and getting staffed. I blame it on the writer. I don't blame it on myself.
What you do well, though, is help with, form letter writing.
Absolutely, with everything.
query
With every, I
letters,
mean, listen,
yeah.
it's first of all the strategy.
Right.
What are we doing and how are we doing it?
Yeah.
What are we aiming for? What are we preparing for? What do we need for it? What is the reason for it? And how do we maximize relationships? How do we maximize opportunities? So I can't take credit for it though.
Sure,
It's,
right. And
it's
there's no
all them.
guarantee. That it's
No, there isn't, and it is writer dependent. I mean, like, honestly, at the end of the day, you can submit amazing materials for a fellowship, but you walk in and you blow your interview.
Yeah.
It happened to me a few years ago that a writer just was really bad talking about himself, and was told this when he was not accepted into the program. Was told, like, we really liked your writing, but we're concerned that in a room you'll just shut down. So we can't spend 3-4 months trying to bring you out of yourself.
Especially when you've got 15 to 20 other people who are just that much better in a room than you
Well,
might be.
and ultimately it was unfortunate because we worked really hard and we prepped and we had all the answers mapped out and there was
Then it turns
meditation
into like
involved.
a therapy session.
But it does. So did I feel terribly about that? Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I can help the writer as much as I can, but it is the careers in the writer's hands.
Yeah.
It's the writer in the room with the executive, it's the writer in the room with the fellowship organizer, it's the writer in the room with the showrunner. And I'm lucky in that really talented and brave people have chosen to come and work with me.
Right.
Yeah, but I think the women in film, they were saying it's half writing, half business. We did an event with women in film, and the business side is just as important as the writing nowadays.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I had a writer a few years ago who refused to talk about himself in a room. We just refused. He will not talk about himself. And wanted to break into television and wanted to get
He
representation.
can speak about himself in the third person.
Just
Will not speak in this.
George is getting upset.
Will, I'm just a writer. So where'd you grow up? Oh, well, I started writing in 5th grade. Where was 5th grade? What does it matter? That's when I started writing.
Wow.
Really just wanted it to be about the writing, and his name was not Will.
Right.
That was Will Shakespeare.
His name was.
But really just did not want to talk about himself. But eventually we stopped working together because I had to say, listen, if you don't bring people in, it's not happening.
Yeah, you've got to bring yourself to the party.
So
there was a blockage there of some kind that had nothing to do with the writing. There was something else going on.
yeah, but listen, at the end of the day, it is about business. People want to work with people that they like, with people that they understand, with people that they relate to, where they see eye to eye with them. Of course they want to work with talented and passionate people. That goes without saying. But there is a lot of business and a lot of strategy. It's an incredibly competitive business. If you look at the fellowships, 2,500 applicants for 8 spots.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
less than
always
1%.
equate it to the major leagues. You can spend most of your time as a baseball player in the minors and be lucky to get there. But then the jump from minor leagues to majors, it's just there are only so many spots on rosters. There are only so many teams. You may never get there.
Here's a figure for you. It's harder to get into the fellowships than it is to get into Harvard.
Wow.
Yep.
There you go. Go.
But I don't want to end this on a depressive note.
Okay, yeah.
People do it all the time. Like,
That's true.
I've not had a year without at least 2 or 3 people on the programs.
Oh, wow.
I have now the fellowship EGOT. I'm very proud of it. I've had a writer in every single
Wow, that's
highly
No
regarded
way.
fellowship, every last one of them.
That feels
Very
like
proud of
some
myself.
kind of a Trivial Pursuit pie
Yes,
completion.
it's
or
a
something.
huge
round of
thing.
applause, round of applause.
It was a very proud moment.
Wow. Well, my sister, her question may have been answered. Erin asks, what's the biggest benefit of having a career coach, especially as a writer? I think a lot of that was answered, but what's the biggest benefit?
It's about thinking strategy. It's about having answers to questions, having a place to go and have them answered, having a place to prep where you're not trying to impress anybody, right? You're not trying to impress your agent or your manager in fear that you'll say something wrong and they'll drop you.
Right.
You're not trying to not bother them with the wrong thing so they'll think less of you. You're not trying to impress your executive or your showrunner. It's really just truly having somebody on your side that will hopefully be as candid with you as possible, that will help you see the blind spots, but that will just be purely on your side and help illuminate the path, the business, the strategy, and address its challenges.
I love that. I love that. So Mary's is, what do you think of short film events like the 48-hour film projects? What do you think about that?
I think they're great for practice. I think making is always really important, and I think not all writers are makers, right? But for those writers who are making, going out there and making is really important. I think it's a great way to learn about writing as well. I think it's hard to get industry traction from them because there's so many, and I was talking with a few clients about short films the other day. I'm still a big believer for my writer directors and my directors especially to have something that they have to have something to show, right? You can say director all day long. But if you don't have something to hand over, we got a problem. But I think that's
an emphasis on writer-director because the short film medium is much more of a director.
It's a director's medium, hands down, no questions asked. Nobody's ever seen a short film. That was amazing. Who wrote exactly? But I do think that I'm a believer that any time that you set out to do anything, you should set out to do it in the most amazing way.
Right. Why go half-assed? There's just
whether it's a script or a short or you're directing something or you're writing a one-act play or whatever, you should set out to make it great. So I think they're great, but not necessarily for the purposes the people want them to be great, which is somebody's going to see me and discover me. And
I think they're also good for connections, contacts. You never know if someone
building
down the
a
line,
team.
might
absolutely,
become...
you should always, as a writer, you should always be building your network, getting to know people, doing favors for people that you believe in. They say that the best networking is done in the spirit of generosity and curiosity. Big believer in that. Always give back. Always see how you can help. Good things will come back to you.
That's how you build your team, man.
Totally.
I love that. Was it building curiosity? Say that again.
Generosity and curiosity. Best networking is done in the spirit of generosity and curiosity.
Write that down.
Write that down.
I love that.
All right, Saeed Crumpler says, any advice for an upcoming screenwriter who just signed with a literary manager?
Congratulations.
Congrats.
To the literary manager. It's very exciting.
Just general advice for that. You want to really have a clear vision of what the plan is. What you should be writing. Is your manager planning to take the piece that they signed you on out? Do they want rewrites? If they feel like, okay, I found you on this, I love your voice, what is that thing that you should be writing? Are they weighing in? Are they looking at your ideas? What is going to be their involvement developmentally? And what is their strategy for you business-wise? So let's say you sign with somebody, they're a huge fan, they love your voice, they want to develop work with you. You also want to have something of an understanding, which in earlier stages will be a little bit broad about what's the plan with the material once it's done. You don't want a manager to get too comfortable and just kind of development heaven, where you're developing whenever nothing ever goes up. At the same time, you want a manager who does develop and give notes and can get really excited about it and invested in the work, so when the time comes, they will get it out there. You want to produce rapidly, but you don't want to write fast rather than good. You have to trust your manager, but work hard to impress him or her.
Is the 10% or 50? 10%.
10. Only 10.
10% for managers, but is the how am I trying to say it? It's like,
Well, I know
should you be doing 90% of the work?
That's exactly what they say. Managers
Yeah.
talk about, like, and listen, at the end of the day, I get paid 10%. And agents
Right.
will, when they represent writers, are going to say that as well. I do 10% of the work there, or I get 20% of the money, therefore I do 10% of the work.
Yeah.
That means that the writer should be writing, but should also be keeping an eye towards the business. You should talk to your manager about, if you're LA based, if you're New York based, do they want you out there? Do they want you networking? What is the plan? What is the vision? How do they want to maximize you? What is their advice? They've done this before. If they want to
Right.
break you into film, what's the plan? Is
Yeah.
it blacklist, hit list, young and hungry list, blood list if you're writing in that space, and a bunch of generals? Like, is that what they're aiming for? Are they trying to make you into a studio writer? Are they going for that elusive, near impossible to get spec sale? Like, what are they doing? What is the material that they need from you, and what is the plan for it at that point?
What's the plan?
Yep.
What is the plan, Saeed? I think
Yeah.
also as well, like remember that although it doesn't feel like it, they are working for you. So that's not kind of like bossing them about.
Yeah, and it's also,
But
you
it
have to
is-
remember in earlier stages of your career, when you've yet to make the money, you have to understand that they are servicing a list of clients. So if they're not getting back to you within 10 minutes or half an hour or 2 hours, it's because they're making the kind of living that they need to make in order to be able to service you. Of course,
Yeah.
the flip side is if you email them on Monday and they don't get back to you until Friday as a regular habit, that's something to be a little bit concerned with, especially with a larger management company. There may be a conversation down the line of like, listen, I get that you're really busy. Is there maybe somebody more junior
Yeah.
that if I
Right.
have quick questions for, something like that.
Yeah. That's
But
good advice.
you want to really assess their involvement and be respectful. You don't want to shoot them emails every day with a new idea and expect them to respond.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
no,
right.
please don't do that.
Yeah, so you want to manage the communication and you want to manage your expectation of them and understand where you are in the pecking order.
Yeah.
I would say that landing a manager is the beginning of your career, not the I've arrived.
No, it's only the beginning.
Yeah.
Now you've landed a manager and hopefully it's somebody known and reputable who's well connected. You now have an advocate in the industry. You want to stay front of mind for them, so you don't want to take 2 years until your next screenplay if you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to write really, really fast and give them junk where you're like, look, I wrote this in 2 months and it's amazing. And they read it and they go, I can't do anything with it.
Right.
That is not going to instill any confidence in them. So it's definitely a step forward and a milestone in anybody's career. And we're talking specifically about vetted, known industry managers who are in it day in and day out. It's definitely a milestone, but it's not everything.
Yeah. We do have one more question from James, but I just want to check to see. Okay. Elizabeth, perfect segue. So, James, we will get to your question. Hopefully, you're still on. Actually, you know what? This is an important question. Do you want to read James' question? I feel bad because I don't want to just skip
There's
over
a
it.
lot of debate about the questions. I'm so curious. I can't see them from where I'm sitting.
We'll hit Elizabeth's segue
Okay.
in a second. Yeah.
Bring it on.
Okay, James says, I'm Hispanic and live in El Paso, Texas, big border city. I have a script about a border patrol agent who ends up finding a family hiding on his property. He is torn between doing his job and helping them out. After he gets to know them, I'm trying to get my script out with zero luck. Any suggestions?
All right, so first of all, I love that you're writing what you know. I love that you're writing from your own experience in terms of just the world that you know, something that feels immediate to you in the industry. I think that executives and reps often look to hear not only what is the idea, but how is the writer connected to the idea? Why is the writer the right person to write the script?
Yes. Yeah.
Being in El Paso, of course, it's tougher than being in LA, but not impossible. I would first of all look at competitions that are a great way to build some pedigree. So we do know that Table Read My Screenplay is coming up. There are other competitions that...
So many.
Yeah, so I mean, I think truly there's less than 10 that a writer should truly be entering on any given year.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
There
That's
is-
a whole other podcast, I think.
So- a whole other
There is
podcast.
a list on the ISA website that is vetted screenplay contests.
Yeah,
For the non-10 that Lee's referencing, as an aside, I think it is important to try to receive at least some validation if you're brand new at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
How am I doing?
No, but in terms of, I mean, this was a question about getting some traction in
right,
the industry, so I'm looking
right.
at it from that point of view.
Yeah.
So ultimately, You can look at competitions. You can look at the Blacklist website. You can look at things like online pitches that Roadmap Writers and Stage 32 are doing. Of course, you want to work up a great pitch. You want to know how to speak about your material in a way that resonates with people who listen to pitches all day long.
Yeah.
Virtual Pitch Fest still does their online pitches that are more query-like,
Right.
but they have people who are paid to respond to these, paid to open them and consider them. So there are those avenues. Of course, it's a little bit tougher. But if you're writing features, there's no reason. If the script is great, I mean, I would say first and foremost, you want to vet the material. You want to make sure that it is a great writing sample, that readers, industry readers, are responding to it the way that you want them to respond to it, that it's getting high marks across the board, and then start submitting it to contests. Smaller contests are great. You don't need to be, top 10 of 5,000. In the beginning,
Right.
if you're top 5 of 250,
Huge.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's amazing. So you want to start submitting, and then once you feel the material is really there, you want to go to those bigger contests that can really get you some bang for your buck with them.
Yeah.
And do your research on the contests, because actually some of them have very specific kind of things they're looking for. If you look at the winners from past contests, I think it tells you a lot about the kind of scripts that the contests like. And everyone has a bit of a style. Even the contests that we have at ISA have different levels. So do that. Do your homework so you don't
Yep.
waste your money.
Yep.
Okay. So Elizabeth.
We had a segue with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth
now,
is
now
one
I'm
of
curious.
my story farm writers. I'm glad Elizabeth's able to tune in. She's usually in bed by this time.
I want
Hi,
to say
Elizabeth.
Helene Taylor is a top fan.
Elena
Hello,
Taylor,
top
She
fan.
is a top fan. Has a
She's
little,
got a diamond.
little diamond next
Wow.
to her name. That's funny.
Anyone
Oh my
else will be a
God.
top fan?
I don't know
how you do
why
it.
Mary and Lee J aren't. That's funny.
How do we become a top fan?
I think Facebook sends out, because I received you might be a top fan for the love of old houses, because I followed this Facebook page like crazy because they
We
show
are
these
learning so
amazing,
much about you
beautiful
right
houses.
now.
I love architecture and houses, and so I follow this Facebook page, and they sent me an opportunity to be the top fan, and I thought I clicked yes, and so I've been looking at my comments and I'm not listed as top fan. I don't have a little
no.
diamond. I'm like, what did I do?
What did you do wrong?
So Helena may have said yes, I'll be a top fan.
You guys
Thank
are
you,
such
Elaine.
Facebook pros. I feel so novice.
All right, so Elizabeth's saying, are streaming networks looking for more low-budget type stories? So I think that's a great way to get into this idea or the subject of what's going on. We've got so many streamers. Is Disney Plus just going to kill everybody?
It might,
What's
but
the-
I don't
yeah.
think it'll kill everybody as quickly as anybody thinks. I mean, I
Okay.
can't. Amazingly, we are still not fully out the gate on this streamer thing because Peacock was just announced yesterday.
Yeah, which is
HBO Max,
NBC's, yeah.
not out.
Right.
Yeah,
Buying
2022.
like nobody's
Disney's
business.
technically not even out.
Disney's not out. Apple is premiering April 1st, or I'm sorry, November 1st.
Yes,
like,
right.
there is still so much to roll out and discover. I mean, don't forget, we thought the growth was going to be all over in 2019, and
Right.
let me tell you,
Yeah.
not so much.
But I'm also seeing the negative side of what if we do launch all these things and suddenly the ratings are terrible, stock holders are like, oh my God, the money's
Here's
going down.
the challenge. We have, while some network executives will disagree with me profusely, we are now not in a place where a great show doesn't get discovered, right? Where great content just gets lost.
Right, that's
Where
true.
when we were not binge viewing, shows like Pushing Daisies went
I love
away.
that
That
show.
today, everybody that you talk to loved that show,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and yet we're all sitting here heartbroken and pining
Right.
for it. So there is
Even
more
Arrested Development had to go off air, but then they were brought back or whatever. Yeah.
You Died on Lifetime found a very rich life on Netflix.
Yeah.
That came in under the Berlanti deal over on Netflix. So Netflix and Amazon, both tried to get into the movie world.
Yeah.
Netflix had earlier success in episodic. Amazon had earlier success in features. Now they're both working hard. I think Netflix is working a little bit harder to kind of satisfy every type
Right.
of viewer.
Literally every.
Yeah. You like,
Baking shows are huge. If Felicity watched the baking shows all
baking
the
show
time,
horror, I'm sure you will find it on Netflix.
there's a baking show horror.
No,
No,
but I'm
the
sure,
problem
I'm
is-
sure you can find it.
That's a great
They have a
idea.
person that's just for Christmas. I mean, like,
Yeah,
No,
right.
but I mean,
Yeah.
before this we had specialists, right? Hallmark did the feel-good Christmas stuff and some women in peril. Lifetime did women in peril.
Yeah.
Netflix is doing kind of, it's got a soup going on
Right.
with everything in there,
Yeah.
which is great because people are finding it and people are responding. We are not yet in a place where we feel, or at least the impression is becoming, we've reached critical mass.
Right.
We are at our limits. It's all going to fizzle
Yeah,
from
yeah.
here. There's still a feeling that all the good content is being found.
Yeah.
Right? It's being
It's the
identified.
word of mouth thing. I mean, like Dead to Me, everyone was like, we watched the first episode of it. I really liked Dead to Me, and then you put on Facebook, I love Dead to Me, and then suddenly it kind of goes.
Bam. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel that's the thing, isn't it? The word gets out
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because it's available to you, because it's available to you right there and then, because it's available to you to watch how you want to watch.
Yeah.
So you want to shut down for a weekend and watch all of Stranger Things
Right.
in, a day and a half? Go nuts.
And it's kind of exciting for me to know that I still have like 7 or 8 episodes of Carnival Row
Yep.
yet to watch. Like, okay, I can watch that whenever I want. I don't have to go to the theater. Oh God, I have to schedule time.
But like my cousin-in-law Laura, I was with her in April, and she was like, "There's not enough Game of Thrones on the air. There's not enough like world building shows."
Interesting.
And then so suddenly we have a Carnival Row, and we
Yeah.
have the Lord of the Rings Hobbit universe
can't
that's being
wait.
constructed.
Yeah.
So there's still this thing of like, oh, there's all this stuff there, but I want more. Here's
Right.
what I want, and I'm not.
Yeah.
And
Getting
I can
it.
sit on my couch and it can come
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. So the low budget
And
reference.
I would say yes. Yes.
There's a yes, but Netflix has a.
But Netflix is doing all types of movies.
Yeah.
I think the independent market is growing again, and that we have independent financing that is coming in from all different avenues, while studios will continue to do the franchises and Marvel and DC and whatever else they can
Yeah,
resurrect
the event
17 times
films,
over. Yeah,
yeah.
that is their business model. You have to remember
Right.
that other than Disney, all studios are corporate owned
Yeah.
today. So the strategy is a much safer
Who
strategy.
owns MGM?
MGM is Sony.
Sony. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Literally everybody but Disney is corporate.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit more limitation there in terms of where you can go. Forrest Gump is not going to be made by Universal or Warner Brothers or Paramount or whoever else. Well, of course, if they're watching it, they'll tell you the Paramount Signature will, which please, I'd love you to. But they're just playing with a different set of cards right now, which is fine because other movies are getting made. I think we're privy to those a little bit more in LA because we have all the art house movie theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And in any big city, Chicago, New York, LA,
Yeah,
are kind of the same way.
certainly.
But we heard from a company that we have a relationship with, we're trying to get material to, named Screen Arcade. They have a deal with Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that Netflix is, maybe she was generalizing, but basically the low budget for Netflix is under 25, high budget's above 25.
Yeah, but
So low budget. Could
I
be
mean,
anything.
listen, they also 3-4 years ago bought Bright for $90 million and brought Will Smith to Netflix, which just that simple action, even though the movie was not successful,
Yeah.
that simple action is a very important action because it shows you.
It was successful enough for a fucking sequel, so they're
Yeah,
going to...
no question. Wow, are we allowed to curse?
Sure, why not?
Oh my God.
Here we go.
Motherfucker.
10 minutes to
It's
go.
Wednesday night. We got wine, and I'm almost out.
There's
There's not much left. I'm waiting for the ladies to be finishing. I feel like a lush.
Here, you can have mine. I have to drive back, so.
Oh no. Okay.
I
Anyway.
know, me and wine. I
Anyway.
love my wine.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like we are still being asked a lot for them. So whether or not they're ending up Netflix or
Yeah, I don't know
wherever-
that it's the streamers. I don't know if the streamers are out there going like, give me your best $2 million movie. The Blumhouses of the world still have that world
Yeah.
in which they're making that
And that
type
world
of
is
film.
growing.
Oh yeah, no question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think across the board we are seeing growth.
For sure. I
which
think
is a
it's
great
difficult to know, for us especially, since we're technically development executives through our little production shingle. We're trying to get projects out there, so we're trying to find out what the streamers want, and it's weird. Like, it's difficult to know.
Listen,
like,
our barometers for success have changed severely because you used to know if a movie was successful because you put it out there and then
Yeah.
you did the accounting.
yeah,
You know how many screens it was on. You know the per screen average.
right. There was math.
There was math involved. With streamers, it's funny math, right?
Yeah.
They know.
They don't know the algorithms. Like, again, I'm going to reference Screen Arcade. I asked them what their mandate is, and most times when we're talking with companies, they tell us something relatively specific. And she started going through their mandate, and by the end of it, I'm like, so pretty much anything. They listed literally everything from very specific Latino or Latinx, projects to broad comedy like Hangover. I'm like, all right, so this.
I know they're looking for a lot of
anything.
female-driven comedy, like that
very
sort of stuff.
female-driven stuff is huge. Yeah.
Yay!
Especially action thrillers with a female lead. We've gotten that from 4 or 5 different companies.
Yeah, we're mining those. So if you have any of those, we're definitely looking for those.
Yeah.
I think it's still worth, if you're honing your craft, to write a very limited, contained horror, or because actually there is a market out there for it. So if you want to do it even as a writing exercise, I think.
Listen, I think every hour written is an hour gained. In my experience, writers that write, that try to break in on like very big worlds, very, Mars, 2120. Those tend to be a little bit harder because we're also making less of those movies, and usually those movies are based on IP. So if you're writing a type of film, look at the other films in that space and consider whether or not you can easily fit in there. I mean, like the unique thing about Carnival Row, for example, it's not based on IP.
It blew me away. I
not
was
based on
so
IP. It's
jealous and
crazy.
mad because I have a book about fairies, and I was like, "You jerk!"
I know, but it's so
script.
different to yours.
It's very R-rated.
No, but that's a
90% of it.
unique thing to, first of all, TV. Secondly, anything with big world building.
Right.
There is no IP in place. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. It's a little, but it's good.
My husband loves it. I will watch it so long as he does.
All right. It makes me very uncomfortable seeing fairies have sex. I'm just gonna say
We
that.
haven't gotten there yet, so.
Also, we were sat on the couch together, and because we're just roommates, it was like sitting with your dad or your mum. I think we both,
You kind of like
both
scoot
of us
away.
are
Well, but
like-
it was also like I have this 16-year-old fairy in my book that I've grown very close to over the past 10 years. Suddenly I'm seeing one have sex. I'm like, I'm very uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable.
It doesn't
around.
take long to get to the sex, by the way. All right,
Yeah.
so God, there's so many other topics we could talk about.
Any other questions we want to answer?
There
Are we
aren't
good
too
on questions?
many. I mean, Mary's saying, how good or bad would it be for me to ask how many applications there were for the grant that I won? So if to reach out to a contest. or
Yeah, I
something.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, here's the thing. You are, a month into whatever, or I don't know what the length of the mentorship is, but you are deep into it. You can then sort of like chuckle by the way.
Yeah.
Just to give me perspective, but don't ask right off the bat.
Yeah.
And even then, does it matter? Is it going to make the grant better because it was a bigger number? I think basically just enjoy the fact that you had the grant and they chose you.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah, I mean,
argue
listen,
that.
at the end of the day, you always want to go everything with kind of humility and gratitude. I appreciate being here. I appreciate being granted this. I want to make the most of this opportunity.
Right.
If you develop a very close relationship with one of your mentors, sure, if there are mentors, have that conversation. Otherwise,
Yeah, and Felicity and I could be considered mentors for Fast Track. Like if somebody we knew and felt comfortable, if Mary asked us how many entries were there for Fast Track, I'd be like, well, it's this many, because we know Mary. But if you don't know the person that you're reaching out to, Mary, then it's like,
listen, I've had people go into interviews and say for fellowships, granted they generally come to me after and say, oh my God, I think I said this terrible thing, where they'll go in for an interview and go like, so just so I know, like how many applicants, like I'm here, how many people applied to this thing? Okay.
Yeah.
And it becomes, the moment that you say that, it feels competitive. It feels about winning, that it's become about winning a competition or winning a position or winning a fellowship or winning a grant rather than
the experience.
Receiving the grant, receiving the fellowship and going through whatever it grants you.
What does it matter? I mean, my feeling is ultimately is comparing yourself to any other writer is an impossible and a very difficult and wrong thing to do.
But
anyway.
writers naturally do it anyway. That doesn't mean that we should foster that instinct. I think it's very natural to look sideways. We do it in our friend circles when we're younger. Who's married, who has kids, who doesn't, what does it say about me, where should I be, who has which job, what's their income, like who drives which car. I think it's a very natural thing to look sideways. Doesn't make it healthy.
Right.
No.
And so you have to have some faith that you are on your unique path. Every writer's path is entirely unique. That you will break when you're ready to break. And the only thing in your control is putting in 120%, showing up in the best way, showing up in the most professional way, writing the best scripts, working on your craft. That's what you have to worry about.
Yeah. I think for the last question for you, Lee, since we don't have any from the comments, It's just
That was
popped
amazing,
in-
though. I thought that was like, wow.
That's great.
And good night.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But kind of along the lines, so Felicity and I and the ISA, and as well as some of our fellow coworkers, we're launching some new podcasts. We're getting those out in about probably within the next month or two. Scott Marcus is a coworker and a longtime friend of mine. We're launching a paranormal stories podcast, talking about the craft of paranormal stories. Going to be bringing on guests from like ghost investigator shows and all this stuff. Anyway, one question that Scott and I are asking is going to be like the same we ask of everybody. And in that podcast, what's the one ghost story or weird story that everybody should know that they don't? So with you in mind, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, now I'm like, oh.
No.
Like ghosts?
What's
What?
the one piece of news in like the past month that you find the most interesting? Something that you eyebrow raised when you were reading the report or Variety or something that even surprised you. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be something that needs to be educational.
I mean, I hate saying this, very little surprise. I mean, Carnival Row surprised me.
Okay.
The fact that a show of that magnitude is not based on IP
Yeah.
blew me away.
It's
Okay.
so expensive.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. It's so big. It's a very daring project, and
Yeah.
I think it shows you the mindset of Amazon, right? Amazon.
Right.
The one thing we have to remember about streamers is that they're not looking for the 5-season arc. They're looking for the 3 to 4 season arc, right? They're looking to get their viewers kind of net their hours. It's all about how long you can keep your viewers watching your outlet versus
Anybody
going to
else?
Netflix or
Yeah.
Hulu or whomever. But I think it just shows you the mindset that Netflix has, and we saw this with we heard about it with the cancellations of things like Mozart in the Jungle, that were the shows that they were very successful enough with, or as successful as they had been in the beginning, didn't net them the big wins. Wasn't Mrs. Maisel. Mrs. Maisel, while it's a daring show, it's a known, celebrated content creator who could get away with it.
Yeah.
And it's not to say the creators behind Carnival Row are not known and celebrated, but it is just such a huge
He's
show.
a relatively unknown writer.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a Duffer Brothers play.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a Stranger
That's
Things
right.
Duffer Brothers
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
Duffer Brothers were nowhere.
Right.
Not that they weren't nowhere. They were great. They had
They've
horror.
done some
Yeah, they had some
stuff, yeah.
horror films, but they
Yeah.
weren't. They didn't do anything in the magnitude of
close.
Stranger Things,
Yeah.
much as the creator of True Detective had done a couple of episodes of The Killing, but didn't run a
Right,
show.
right,
And then Nick Pizzolatto wrote True Detective, and
Right.
so we are seeing these kind of strokes. So it just puts me in a position of observing the industry and feeling that it's there are those companies out there that are being very daring with their choices, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Well, Max is very pleased because it's a fairy show and he is a fairy book.
Come on, let's get fairies cool again, man. Tinkerbell's more than just 5-year-olds.
Are there fairies or are they fays?
No, they're fairies. They're not fays. The fae is more Carnival Row.
What is the difference between a fae and a fairy? Can you explain this to me?
In many circles,
Educate me.
there is no difference. The fae in legend is a little bit more geared toward human-sized fairy figures. Some of them don't have wings, and they're actually not good. Like, they're bad.
They all got pointy teeth.
And they're scary,
Right.
and they steal children at night, or you go into the fae land, and there are many different names, and you don't come back. Like, it's a bad, scary thing. The Tinkerbell level of fairy is primarily just elementals. That's where it came from, the legends. They're little balls of light and stuff, and then Disney kind of took it and ran with it. And then there's just everything in between. They're a little nasty little kind of, I mean, I'm sure,
Gremlin-y.
yeah, you've probably heard even more growing up than I did.
Well, there was a whole thing in the UK about the fairies in the bottom of the garden because there was a picture that was doctored where someone literally
Yes. That's
some
long
fairies
ago,
in them,
from
yeah.
like the 40s or 50s or
I
something.
think it's like 1912. It's literally
Oh,
early.
it was. Yeah. It was a while
really
ago.
early.
They doctored, yeah.
So even photography was new.
Oh, wow.
So to create a false picture of a fairy in something which is already a new medium is a kind of sense of wanting
Yeah.
something. I feel like the UK is very wistful in its wishing.
Oh, yeah.
And there's
I
something
mean,
about
the Irish still
very
believe
local
leprechauns
and-
run around the
I
woods.
don't know if they really do.
I've seen multiple like investigation shows where people go out trying to find they're like versions of the leprechaun. It's not like the typical.
You don't
Irish.
think that's for the money? No.
Of course, they interview people on the side of the street, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and their legends are. The Irish government averted a portion of land and redesigned their highway to go around a portion of land because of their belief that the leprechauns lived in a certain area. You can look that up. Look it up.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Anyway, difference between fae and fairy, not a big one other than just some various legends and stuff.
Well, thank you for informing me.
You look
Yeah.
so cynical. Just like look
Well-
at my face, I'm like that.
I think that kind of hits everything
We
here.
didn't do one last thing. We have Shoot Your Sizzle is a contest that is
Oh,
open.
yes.
The reason why I'm excited about this is because actually we're meeting our most recent Shoot Your Sizzle winner, which is an amazing romantic comedy about a guy who gets cancer. And it's a romantic comedy.
Sounds
and who dies from
hilarious.
cancer. It's
Hey,
kind of-
50-50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
But it's actually, the guy that wrote it is based on his story and he survived, which is what is so amazing about it.
Yeah,
And
right.
he literally has the relationship with his wife, which is what's so wonderful about the script. In real life, oh my god,
Love
true
it.
love exists.
So
But anyway,
shootyoursSizzle.com
yeah, it's just
or emergingscreenwriters.com.
Emerging Screenwriters where you go, but then it's Shoot Your Sizzle,
Yeah.
and it's $40,000 worth in funds, production and post-production services, professional counselling, and more to produce a sizzle. So, like, as you were saying earlier about having a calling card,
Yeah, makers.
This is it.
Being makers.
Being a
Very
maker.
important.
Create. You just constantly create. Build
Yeah.
an audience. Let people know that you exist. It's number one. You know.
yeah,
Totally.
that's totally why we built the ISA, so you could all be in one place with your profile, with all your wins, with all the kind of like your synopsis, your log lines, your vocal pictures, everything in one place, and the producers are also on the site too, so they can find you rather than trying to find you individually via your website.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, thank
There
you,
was a
Lee,
method.
for being here as always, coming all the way from West LA.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Coming
Happy to.
From anywhere to Hollywood at 6:30 is like a nightmare anyway. So
For you
it's-
guys, anything. Anytime.
All right.
We really appreciate it because honestly, the 405 is a nightmare to go across.
Didn't go anywhere near. Well, I went under it.
Oh,
Right. Oh, so you're west of the 405.
I was coming from west of the. I'm technically east, but I'm west of La
At
Cienega.
the time. Oh, well, you were in Culver City? Or,
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse. That's not West LA. That's even further than
That's
West
fine.
LA. Holy cow. Well,
I think we have to agree that Lee is one of our best guests. We love
Aw.
having her on
she's
the
great.
show.
You should
Thanks
go
for
to
having me over.
LeeJessup.com. She has a weekly blog that you send
I
out.
do rather maniacally publish a blog. A
I
blog a
I
week.
get it every week. You can, at the very least, just apply with her blog, or not apply.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Why?
Listen,
It's a
watch.
newsletter
Welcome.
subscription.
Yeah.
So I do have that, and try to share information and inform writers. It's kind
Yeah.
of my mission.
God forbid. You
To
know?
keep writers in knowledge. You can do whatever you want with the knowledge. You can discard it, disagree with
Yeah.
it, argue with it, hate it, love it, appreciate it. But I try to keep the knowledge flowing.
Yeah. Well, she's a wealth of knowledge, as you can tell from our show tonight. Anything else you want to?
No, it's
Yeah.
been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely loved it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
we
for
will
listening.
see you, I believe, in 2 weeks.
2
I think we're in
weeks.
2 weeks again. I can't.
Yes.
Once we get into the October spooky season, we'll be talking about scary stories and horrors. that
Scary,
stuff.
scary. I hope I'm going to be here on the 31st. I hope I'm not going to have to be in London. But anyway, if not,
We'll
it's going
make
to be a
it
horror
work.
thing.
We'll make
isn't
it work.
We'll make it work.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Bye now.
Bye.